Hello, YouTube. Okay, so I've been wanting to talk about Red vs. Blue ever since I started watching it, and since Season 14 has now come out, I see this as a perfect opportunity, so we're going to be talking about Season 14 of Red vs. Blue. So, what's been happening this season? Well, that's kind of hard to explain because really, there's no arc for this season. Usually, with this show, at least there is an arc, even if it is about nothing like Season 1. But here, there isn't one in the least. It's just a bunch of random plots put together in one season. And granted, there are a few episodes that do carry an arc, usually for about 3 episodes, but then they just move on to something else entirely. So, is this season still good story-wise? Well, yeah, actually, I think so. Mainly what it does this season is it's focusing more on the humor aspect, and also trying to be experimental in what it's doing. There are a lot of times this season where they change animation style. That's one of the main things I really liked with this season. They change it from hand-drawn to 2D to Lego stop motion, and even live action. So they changed this thing around quite a bit, and honestly, that kind of feels in theme with the show. Because there was a time where the animation style kept on changing throughout seasons, and yeah, that's pretty much continued on the tradition very well. And I guess that they just decided to dedicate a whole entire season to this. And honestly, I really liked it. Every single time they change the animation, the story also changes, and it can honestly be pretty interesting at times, or they can be filler episodes, or they'll just be there for comedy. So it really just depends on which episode you're watching. There's even one where they poke fun at their very first, very cheap animation style, and I just loved that bit. So yeah, honestly, the animation style of this season is definitely what makes it stand out, mainly because there is no particular style. It's just going back and forth through various different ones. But given that, it's still experimental. So there are going to be quite a few episodes that don't really register that well with me. Now, for the main one, that would actually be the last 2 episodes. Which, while pretty funny, I just didn't really overall like. I don't know, maybe it's because there were so many possibilities of taking the Red vs. Blue characters out of the computer and putting them into the real world, that it just felt like a missed opportunity to me, but yeah, it honestly did feel just like that, a missed opportunity. It felt like there were so many more things that they could have done with that. Honestly, when I saw Griff talking to his live-action counterpart, I honestly thought they would be chilling out on a sofa or something. I don't know, drinking beer and watching movies. I don't know, watching something. But nope, we instead just see them running away from each other. Wow, okay. Probably the only character I actually felt satisfied with in that would actually have to be with Tucker and Caboose. Those two, I honestly felt that their arcs in that episode were honestly very well tied up and were hilarious, but while the other characters did have moments where they were funny, honestly, the joke just never really seemed to land with me. And the one about the science of flipping over a Jeep, amazingly, that's not very interesting. Now, I'm guessing that there are some people who can get into it, seeing as it felt like it was a completely different show, but that's exactly it. It felt like it was a completely different show. And if it is one, I haven't seen it, so honestly, I didn't understand the type of humor that they were going with. Maybe it just applies to that show, so I'm just seeing this completely out of context, but yeah, honestly, when I watched it, I didn't really find it that interesting or funny. I mean, it was kind of neat how they did the science on it, but still, I honestly just really didn't care for that one. But then we have some really good episodes, most of them being, well, the rest of the season. It mainly focuses on humor and just random plots. They just introduce random characters for no real reason, but they're still good characters, even with their low amount of screen time. Like, the triplets. I honestly found them hilarious. So, yeah, really, it just depends as to which episode you're looking at from this season. But as for where the season's actually connected to the others, there's like one episode which is about Caboose, and honestly, I think that was the most intelligent we've ever seen Caboose, which is pretty interesting, but outside of that, yeah, it's not, I mean, it's a funny episode, but it's definitely a filler one. That's pretty much most of what the season is, just filler episodes. But it's not a bad season. It is a very strong season if you look at it as a complete experiment. And that's how I was looking at it. Because this whole entire season just felt very experimental. I think that's just the best way to sum it up. It's a very experimental season. They try and see what'll stick and what won't. And honestly, there were some really good episodes that came out of this. Like, the ones with Felix and Locust were by far my favorite this season. And honestly, I wouldn't mind seeing more of that. That was really awesome. Honestly, it'd be cool to see how they actually became bad guys after that. Because that was just really awesome. I want to see how they went from being people who were paid to help out people and not break the law, to trying to cause a civil war. I really want to see how that went down. And also, what happened to Cyrus? Yeah, he's alive at the end of that. I was pretty surprised about that. What happened to him? But yeah, honestly, the only problem I had with those episodes is that the animation style, while not bad, it definitely works for the action sequences. Like the one side of the fog at the dance club, that one was awesome. I loved that fight sequence. But while that one was still good, the animation style of that episode on the humans, like when they're not wearing armor or anything, honestly, it felt very odd. Mainly, their mouths didn't really seem to open up that much, which at some moments would work fine, but at others, yeah, it really doesn't. And honestly, there were a lot of moments in that episode where the animation, especially at the dance club, looks very bad. But I will at least give them credit that during those fights, it really shows why they used that animation style, because it looks amazing during those. And yeah, it did warm up on me after a bit. It's still, it just looked pretty bad when the characters are just generally talking. But overall, it was actually probably the best out of this whole season. Although, if I'm gonna pretty much just be talking about overall episodes, then we'll be here forever, because there are a lot of episodes, and honestly, I could talk about every one of them in great detail. But I do want to actually talk about this season. Honestly, even though it's experimental and it's probably the weakest out of Red vs. Blue, it's still pretty good. Now, they do bring back some of the characters for some of the reasons why I love them, like Church. Honestly, after the whole entire AI subplot, yeah, he stopped being my favorite character, but in these episodes, we actually did get to see him go back to how he was before the AI subplot, so that was really fun. Especially in that musical episode. Oh yeah, did I forget to mention that? There's a musical episode. They sing about a rocket launcher. I love this show. So, yeah, we get amazing things like Griff, Simmons, Sarge, Donut, and Lopez singing about a rocket launcher. Where else will you find that? So, yeah, for those type of reasons, this season is pretty good, but there are still those episodes that are pretty bad. You just gotta watch this whole entire season for yourself. Honestly, like I said, it's very experimental, so it just depends to what works with you for this one. Now, they did say that there will be another season and that they'll get back onto their overall story arc and everything, but frankly, it was kind of nice to take a little bit of a break. And honestly, we got some great animation out of it. They even went hand-drawn at one point in the very first episode. That I absolutely loved. And there's also an episode about just Griffin Simmons, my two favorite characters on this show, so of course I love that one. So, yeah, honestly, I thought that the season was pretty good. Even though it's not as strong as any of the other seasons there have been throughout this show, it still is a pretty strong season for what it is. And what's trying to be is just it's pretty much just experimentation that was just made to be very fun. And that's exactly what it is. It's a fun, experimental season. Now, as we're getting back to the ordinary story arc, honestly, I don't really think they need to. Like, the very final episode of the last story arc, honestly, I think it was pretty good. Mainly, it actually feels like an ending to me. Mainly because pretty much it's just Church talking about how pretty much the hero never gets to see the ending. So to me, I honestly thought that would be the ending, but apparently we're going to get another season. So, yeah, I guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens. Honestly, I'm pretty excited about next year for this next season. So, yeah, for this overall season, I thought it was alright. It did need a bit of work, though, mainly on stories that didn't really hit the mark, like, again, with the ending episodes, and, yeah, while there are some of them that were decent, there are others that definitely stand out. So, frankly, this whole entire season just depends to which episode you're watching. Because, honestly, they are all pretty good, and they do have their funny moments for sure, but honestly, it just really depends to which episode you're actually looking at. So, this was a really fun season. I enjoyed it. The animation style's difference, all the changes with the animation style, I thought that was very interesting to see. But, yeah, did it always work? Not really, but it definitely did have its shining moments. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. Bye. Yep, this place needs a wine bar.